So we're going to start in probably about 2 minutes. Still some coming up. See if I can just wait. We got it? Good evening. Y'all come on. So welcome. Hello. There you go. We don't need to get too serious tonight. All right, so my name is Steve Ellis. I'm Superintendent of Nash County Public Schools. Just welcome you here tonight. Of course, you are here to talk about the demerger plan. What I did want to tell you is that we have been having these meetings, probably 4 or 5 of these meetings, starting in September. So tonight, what you're going to see is probably a progression of slides that probably details you why we're here, what this demerger is about. And we didn't just wake up one morning and decide we wanted to demerge, okay? So we're gonna give you, on these slides, you're gonna get some of the history around this demerger so you'll know where we are and how we had to come up with this facility plan and move forward so when we do demerge. There's also a time tonight that we're gonna have some questions. I know that Ms. Finch is gonna talk about these questions. Mr. Ward is gonna do the presentation. And I will tell you, frankly, just like last night at our meeting at the board, all the answers will not be solved tonight. It's not going to happen. The demerger is something that's never been done in North Carolina. And I tell people if there was a book, I'd have bought it, and I promise you I would have read it. But there isn't. But what I want you to understand is whatever happens in this demerger, our goal, Cabinet's goal, is to make sure that every student has a great school. And that's what we're going to do. And that's always what I believe in. It's what's best for the kids. And I can't control a lot of the other things, but what we try to do is control what's in that school building, what's in those classrooms. So tonight, what I want you to do is watch this presentation. A lot of your questions will probably be answered because we've embedded a lot of those questions throughout these slides that we've already heard. And then we'll go from there. Once again, thank you for coming. And now I'm going to let Mr. Ward come up here and start the presentation. I do have some board members here. I might need to recognize them. Will the board members, Nash County Public Schools, please stand up? Thank you so much for coming. I thought they had enough of it last night, but I guess not. So, now without any hesitation, let's bring Mr. Ward up here.
Good evening. As Dr. Ellis said, some of you may have tuned in last night and saw some of this at the board meeting. It's pretty much the same information that we share with our board. And I will reiterate that, as he said, we've been having community meetings along with our partners, Edgecombe County, since September, sharing part of the plan. And as you know, that it was a two-phase process in terms of working with Edgecombe County. And then on our end, of course, there were some decisions that had to have been made. And that's what we want to sort of go through tonight in terms of how we got here. So if you did not have the opportunity to sign in, there are some QR codes maybe in a seat next to you, or you may have one. And also you can submit a question. At the end, we will entertain some questions. So if you would, please hold all your questions until the end. We promise we'll get to them as best we can. Actually, I will be tag teaming tonight with Ms. Angie Miller. So she will be coming up after me to present the second part of this presentation. Okay? The demerger of Nash County Public Schools. It's about who we are, and this slide here talks about who we are as a county. Our educational history that began back in 1991. Some of you may not know the history of the merger between Rocky Mount City Schools and then Nash County Public Schools back in 1991. Thus prompt a 30-year history of a school system which later became Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools and then Nash County Public Schools. So that's how we got to where we are today. That's who we are, and moving forward, we underwent this transformation and change of adopting the new name of Nash County Public Schools. So as we move forward, we will continue to grow forward together. And this campaign is launched just not about Nash County, but it's about also Edgecombe County. As we launched this, we said, how can we make sure that we're not seen as a separate system of schools or school system, that we will continue to partner with Edgecombe County Public Schools. They will continue to be our partners. So we're going to grow forward together for 30 years. Now, 30 years looking forward, we're going to continue to grow forward together through this process. And that process is educating our children. You know what? I think I'm being sick. This happened last night at the board meeting to me. Okay, here we go. So this is just pretty much a timeline, as you can see, starting really in the 18th century, 1777, Nash County was birthed. And just look, I'm not going to read the timeline to you. This is public knowledge. We shared it last night. So just looking at the timeline, how we have evolved and how we have grown and to where we are right now. 2023, we had to submit our plan to DPI. Let's talk, that was the demerger plan between Nash County and Edgecombe County. That plan was due to DPI by November the 15th. Well, it was there on the 14th. And they have the plan in their hands. We do have a document in our office. If some of you would like to take a look at it, we have not heard officially about the plan, but DPI does have our plan between the demerger of Nash County and Rocky Mount City Schools. I'm a product of Rocky Mount City, I'm sorry. The demerger between Nash County Public Schools and Edgecombe County Public Schools. And of course, that demerger is to take place effective July 1 of 2024. The consolidation of plans. Our agenda tonight will include our why, the post-demerger, mentioning Williford, Edwards, Rocky Mount Middle, Inglewood, and Winstead Avenue. We will also have information on our dual language immersion program, the middle high school feeder plans or patterns, and engagement in our timeline. So, how did we get here? Our why. Part of our why, not the reason, but a reason as a part of our why. Session Law 248, which was ratified last summer, which prompted the demerger between Nash County and Edgecombe County. So the demerger of Nash County and Edgecombe County Public Schools, that's part of the reason why we're here. If it wasn't part of that, then we would not be having this forum here tonight. We will all have our schools. So what happened there? We have to transfer 4 schools on the Edgecombe County side and the TRC Center to Edgecombe County Public Schools. That's what the law calls for. So there's a loss of student population for 2 to 3 years in our high school, that primarily Rocky Mount High School. They will have the most significant impact of losing close to 400 students in this process, approximately. So that would greatly impact Rocky Mount High School with losing those 4 elementary schools, TRC. So TRC is our Teacher Resource Center that's currently where we keep our EC department and instructional staff at the central office level, and also our driver's ed. I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. Placement of students, we had to place those students living in Nash County and attending some of the schools that would be transferred to Edgecombe County Public Schools. Out of that, we had to look at optimizing and the utilization of existing schools and space. Just as a point of reference, just looking at a facility and amenities at one of our schools, Rocky Mount Middle School, of course, having the auditorium, athletic fields, full-size gymnasium, a large cafeteria, and auxiliary gym that's already on that campus. So that brings us to the post-demerger. I'm a former teacher. I'm supposed to not be biased. I'm supposed to work both sides of the room, correct, educators? Okay. I got to move. Okay, so that means that we had to replace TRC. We had to send the EC department, student services, mental health, driver's ed, our records department, student support staff, and principals meetings will have to be held now somewhere else because they are currently being held at Teacher Resource Center. Baskerville currently has 87 students. These are the numbers that can represent the students that will be leaving us. Nash County students that we're going to have to place in schools. And these numbers are not exact. I will say that again. These numbers, because this is a fluid process. Students move each and every day. So Baskerville 87, DS Johnson 58, Fairview 57, Williford 163, bringing an approximate total to 365 students that will have to be placed. Edwards is approximately may lose 9, bringing them to 429. Rocky Mount Middle 450, minus almost 92, 358. And of course, the legacy students we do not know right now. The legacy students are the students at Rocky Mount High School or Nash Central High School that are currently in Edgecombe County. Those students may opt in to stay until they graduate from our school system. Those are our legacy students. So trying to maintain that, because we cannot predict whether or not they may choose to go to Edgecombe County or not. And we're going to have those numbers in April. The applications have already been sent out to parents for them to opt in to become a legacy student. And so we'll have some numbers finalized by April. The deadline, the cutoff deadline is I think March 22nd, Dr. Farrell. And then we're going to have those other numbers available hopefully by April the 6th, I do believe. Williford Elementary. This is the plan for Williford. Right here, this is Williford Street. This is the front of Williford. We can't see that. Anyway, the school is facing Williford Street. The plan is to make this 100 wing, which is currently pre-K, a pre-K wing that will house our pre-K students only. This blue line here represents a partition that will be put up to have controlled access, so only people with a badge can get down to the hallway that have access to the pre-K wing. So that's just an added measure of security for our students and personnel that will be there. The media center, as I mentioned earlier, the media center will be converted to the principal meeting room and also breakout rooms, which will be back here for breakout sessions and also office space. The multi-purpose room will remain the same. The EC department on this corridor here will be housed along with the instructional support staff and also for professional development. Along this hall here, this will be our driver's ed offices, and our EC records will be maintained. NETA, which is our Nash Everywhere Digital Online School, they will remain on this campus. The 500 wing will also have our EC department and instructional staff as well. Edwards Middle will be reconfigured into Edwards Elementary School. The school will enroll the following students from Williford and those returning from Edgecombe County that currently live in Nash and students from other overcrowded schools due to the realignment process. The area behind the gymnasium will be utilized for storage by the maintenance team, again, optimizing and maximizing the use of space that we have here in our county. And Edwards Elementary will be what we call an opportunity coacher school. Opportunity coaches is an opportunity, of course, for teachers to have advanced roles in the school while impacting student achievement, while also earning some extra pay for that. Rocky Mount Middle, Edwards School, Edwards Middle School students who will now attend Rocky Mount Middle School. Middle school students from Edgecombe County residing in Nash, along with others affected by the realignment, may be able to assign or attend that school. The Tar River Academy and City High School will continue to operate at their current location for the time being. Angie Miller is going to go over what that looks like later on. The Spanish Immersion Program, catering right now to 6th through 8th graders, will be relocated to Rocky Mount Middle School. After graduation of the legacy students, which is expected to occur between 2027 and 2029, again, that could very well change our number of school years. We will aim to maintain a student population at Rocky Mount High School comparable to Nash County schools, high schools already. And Rocky Mount Middle School will also be an opportunity culture school. Inglewood and Winstead Avenue, they both will be reconfigured to K-5 schools. Currently, this school is a K-2 school, and Inglewood, the 3-5 school. They now will both become K-5 schools. Both of those schools will also be opportunity culture schools. The Spanish immersion site, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, will be housed here at Winstead Avenue. This will be the site for the Spanish immersion program. So, dual language. Last night, our Director of Professional Development presented this to our board. She did just such a great job, and may just call her up here to come and do it now. So, why combine sites? Inglewood Elementary and Winstead becoming 2 separate K-5 schools in 24-25. Currently, the program is split at 2 schools, K-2 at Winstead, of course, here, and 3-5 at Inglewood. So, will be beneficial for all the teachers to be at one school for more collaboration and vertical planning and just coming together as one in the same building, because it's very challenging to have this and then be in two different buildings. So that was one of the factors in terms of bringing the sites together. These are some other factors that were considered: the building capacity, student and staff impacts, program longevity, program effectiveness, and feeder patterns. Currently, the building capacity at Inglewood is 508 students. Winstead is 625. Current enrollment is at 558, and Winstead 542. Number of students in dual language programs at Inglewood is 51 minus the 17 that would be going to the middle school. That would be 34. There's 71 that would stay here at Winstead. So that represents, in terms of percentage, 9% at Inglewood, 13% at Winstead Avenue, with the staff of 3 at Inglewood and 5 at Winstead. Some other factors was longevity. Well, Winstead Avenue has had the program here for 7 years. Inglewood has had it for 3.5 years. Looking at feeder patterns, students from both schools are more likely to go to Rocky Mount Middle, which will house the current middle school immersion students anyway. Also taken into consideration was the program effectiveness. A program evaluation was done and found that both programs are strong and performing well. Site combination considerations. Students at Inglewood Zone will be able to participate in the dual language program. Transportation will be provided. The application process will take the first 24 that sign up. That 24 will be from both Winstead and Inglewood Zone, and then open to anyone after that that may apply. This is what our plan for our feeder patterns to look like. Of course, trying to create what we call clean feeders. Nash Central will feed into Nash Central High School, Red Oak into Northern, Rocky Mount Middle into Rocky Mount High School, Southern Nash Middle into Southern Nash High School. The engagement process, of course, having forums like the one here tonight. We do have one scheduled for tomorrow night as well at Edwards, thank you, at Edwards Middle School. Just to sort of give you an idea of our timeline, what we've been working through, and again, as Dr. Ellis stated earlier, this is just a timeline from starting with this year, but we've been doing this since probably July, looking at the demerger process and how we want to work through our end of it. So just this brings us to tonight where we are right here with the community forum, hearing from parents, keeping you informed. Tomorrow night will be the same thing at Edwards Middle. The first right here where it says 2/1, February 1st, we are working with a company called ORED, Operational Research Education. This is the same institution that we used if you were here 10, 12 years ago. This is the same institution that we used to help us with the redistricting plan when we went through it district-wide to get the zones that we currently have right now. So this is the same institution that will provide us with assistance. And hopefully if they get us that information this week, we will share that with our board members, and then we will see what the plan looked like. What they would share are what they call scenarios. And so we'll see what those scenarios may look like once we see their plan. So here are our next steps. We continue to consult with Operations Research, which is ORED, this is a company, and they're located on the campus of NC State. So what they help us with, of course, consolidating existing schools, designating attendance zones, and helping us with balancing our demographic information or data. And what we're going to do is, Dr. Ellis said, we're going to continue to be open and transparent in this process. Very inclusive. This is a part of that, including the public in this process, hearing from you, answering your questions as best we can. We do recognize that this cannot be a rush process. This will be a thought-through process that we will consider. Looking at parent surveys and, of course, getting feedback. And again, our focus will be on doing what is best for all students. What is best for all students. So this brings us towards the second half of our presentation. At this time, Ms. Angie Miller, she's going to come up and present to you the Edwards layout and Rocky Mount Middle layout.
Good evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about the layout, and keep in mind all this is a learning process. It's not written in stone, but we have had eyes and hands and ears on this for some time. Bear with my eyes. I had to get me a copy just so I could see. A little bit about what you're going to see here with these red lines, and I know it's small if you're at the back, but with Edwards Elementary, all the grade levels, K through 5, will be downstairs. So there are 2 levels, and you'll see me talk a little bit about that when I get to the cost effectiveness. But everything will be downstairs. There's been a lot of these pieces that were put together and looked at. One of the biggest things, of course, DPI will have to look into this and approve our plan. They already have looked at this, and the biggest thing and obstacles would have been the restrooms and lowering the sinks and the toilets. So that is what these red lines are for those in the back. And it points to the different restrooms. Okay. Oops. This is the outside layout of Edwards. Initially, if you watched us maybe a month back, I mentioned that we were looking at a small area of a playground that would be between 2 of the buildings. That there's already like a project was ongoing at that time, and it was going to be a cleanup process. I can speak to that now. That was just not going to be large enough for a nice playground area. There are 3 pieces of the playground at Williford that will be moved. That is not the pre-K. They have 2 separate playgrounds. One is a pre-K and one is the elementary. Those 3 pieces will be moved to an area here in the middle. There is a fenced, all the red that you see here is fencing and security fencing, because it would be an elementary space. That would give them a lot more running space, and it's over here by the ball field, if you know where I'm talking about, for Edwards. And then looking at Rocky Mount Middle School, a couple of little things that we'll share. Let me make sure this is coming off of Hammond Street. So if you're in the back, and I know I need to be talking to both sides of the room, this area right now is City High, okay? So this is the Rocky Mount Middle side and City High, Tar River. This area that you see that's red is an exterior gate. So when it was Rocky Mount High School, that was a motorized gate. That'll be upgraded. It's a gate area now, but it is not a usable open and close. It'll be a badge access for students and, for teachers to access that area. And this is the 500 wing, and this will be classrooms. At this time, it's not being utilized as a classroom space because they're not needing that classroom space. That will all be refurbished, and actually they're already in the process of working on that as we speak. So City High will remain, Tar River Academy, which there is a drive area which leads you back to the auxiliary gym, if you know where I'm talking about. So that is where the Tar River Academy is at this time. The demerger costs, these are rough numbers. And actually a few things have come to mind since our conversations last night, so I want to thank you for that. Good questions. So a little bit at the top, it talks about Williford. NETA is already in place. It was completely revitalized, and last year it was updated with some of the paint and some of the floor upgrades. Office space and 500, making some of the classrooms into office spaces because that will be used as a teacher resource center. We'll have a lot of admin teams that will come and use that space. You will see that it says add doors and card readers on the 100 hall. We're already in the process of doing that as a safety feature regardless. Our pre-K, when you enter Williford, the office is on the right. The very next wing is 100 wing, and that's where our pre-K is now. So if you ever have gone to a ball game or you've gone to any of our middle or high schools, there's a lot of exterior doors where they have to, the teachers badge in and out to go through the different corridors. That'll be the exact same space that's what it'll look like at Williford, and we're in the process of doing that before close of this school year. So that will already be there. Rocky Mount Middle, upgrades with lights, ceiling tiles. It says phased window replacements. So this will be a 3-phase process. We just did some of this at Williford and Edwards. So that will be phased in. That was already something that we had talked about with our capital outlay. So upgrade for those windows, upgrade for HVAC and fencing for Rocky Mountain Middle. And that gate that I just mentioned to you that you will see if you were to go by that area, the gate just does not remote open and close, and it will be badge access. Edwards Middle, the plumbing fixtures that I mentioned earlier, student desks and furniture, question mark, because if you've followed us in some of our conversations with the closing of 2 of our other schools, some of that furniture is reusable. Some of that furniture will be replaced. These numbers we got from when we built Red Oak Elementary. They were the most current numbers. So these are rough numbers depending on what we'll need when we utilize that. Elevator replacement. Though I mentioned to you that we do not plan to have students on the top floor, we would be doing an unjust to the facility if we did not incorporate the fact that it is an older unit and it would need to be replaced at some point in time. It is a workable feature, but just like with a lot of old products, it needs to be refurbished and revitalized or replaced. So we did put that number in there. New signage and bleachers modifications, I would just mention this to you. We do have a cost effectiveness in there for about $20,000. I'm just going to be honest with you. In 6 months, they will be Rocky Mount Middle School Ravens. Now, how does that look? It can look different when the community buys in, the students buys in, leadership teams buy in. That does not mean that it won't get modified, and that might be a different mascot or color. So if you went back in time when Rocky Mount Middle went there, they went there and they were the Griffons because that's what the floor was still in the gym, right? The colors were still the same, and they eventually grew into the Ravens. The students bought into that, helped pick the mascot and the colors, and so did the faculty and staff. So typically when we have done something like this, historically in our district, there's buy-in from the teachers and the community and the staff, and that is led by the principal and leadership teams. So that is, so I've had some parents ask great questions. Angie, what is that going to look like if my kid plays a sport? They will be wearing a Rocky Mount Middle School uniform. When the season starts, we already have the uniforms. They're in place. But will they grow into being something different? It could be. So that'll be something that the community will be a part of. Fencing, playground and security, I just showed you that on that drawing. That was the red arrows in case you couldn't see it in the back, and that would be for the playground area. I also put in here, our team had talked about playground equipment. Several months, I'm going to say beginning of the school year, maybe last summer, we have a rotation, as we do with many things in our district, and it's a $50,000 rotation of schools for playground equipment. We went ahead and incorporated Edwards, though they would get 3 pieces that were coming from another facility. Those were the 3 that would pass inspection to be moved. But we would have to adjust that. That would go for board approval. It would be modified, and they would be put in the mix, just like the other elementary schools. Abate the 9 classrooms. I want to speak to that a little bit. The word abate, I wanted to leave that there to talk about what does that mean. So during this school year, there were 2 classrooms at Edwards that had to be, what is the word I want to use? Encapsulated because the tile was cracked. So they do get inspected, and those 2 rooms that had the cracked tile, that was replaced. They were abated. We did that in-house. We followed all the protocols to do that. Those classes were not shut down. They were relocated so they could finish that, okay? So at that point, we went ahead and got, it's called Matrix is the name of the company. Matrix came out and did a complete walkthrough for the whole facility of Edwards to ensure that it was up to par. Now, it's just like with, I'm going to say Williford, our pre-K regulations and guidelines, we have to get it tested for lead paint and various other things as they walk to the cafeteria at the other end of the campus. All right, so this is the same kind of scenario. There were 9 other classrooms, and those will be taken care of. They were already in the midst of doing this with or without this plan, and they are the only 9 classrooms in the entire facility that still has anything in it that could be asbestos tile. So I don't think I gave that much detail last night because I wanted to make sure I give you everything that I am aware of. And so once it passed those inspections, they are not things that are of concern at this time, and they have already got a plan in place for when and how that is going to look to abate those 9 classrooms, which gives you a rough total. I will tell you that there has been some other developments that we may be looking at making some modifications. This is just rough numbers to bring everybody up to speed on and where we're thinking and where we're at with it. I'm going to let me make sure I didn't leave anything out because we are going to take some questions and make sure I shared about our group. I think that's everything on my end. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Finch for just a moment, and then we'll take some of your questions.
How's everyone? Nice to meet you all. I'm Heather Louise Finch. I'm the Executive Director of Communication and Planning and Engagement, the one who sends out all of those annoying phone calls. So I'm glad y'all could show up tonight. So if you saw at the beginning, we have a QR code. If you haven't signed in yet, as Dr. Ellis mentioned, please sign in via digitally. We also have a paper form available as well. Thank you so much for also submitting questions. Our goal is hopefully we answered some of those this evening, but we will continue to read through some of those questions right now and address those that haven't been answered. And you can use the camera to submit your questions via that QR code as well on the right-hand side. So I'm going to give you all 60 seconds or more time you need. We have about 45 minutes here to complete those questions if you have them, and I'm going to grab my computer and come right back over. I may need help with repassing out the mic later. Yeah, it's over there. So one of the questions that came in was about NETA, and as Mr. Ward mentioned, that would be going over to Williford Elementary's location. Does everybody see that earlier on the slide? Okay, great. Another one was about the school, several were about the school assignments, and as Mr. Ward mentioned, ORED with the state is working on that right now, and as soon as that information comes in, we will be disseminating that information back to the families. Several questions that I received, and I wanted to address this real quick. So the demerger is not something that came up overnight, trust me. Ask me how I know. So actually, a little history for you is back in, if you go to Nash County Public Schools website, the drop down for the school board, there's a Demerger NCPS landing page. And you can go to that landing page and read about the demerger, the history of it. There's also links that take you to Senate Bill 612 that was first established in 1991 when Rocky Mount City Schools, Edgecombe Schools, and Nash County Public Schools merged to create Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools, up to Senate Bill 382, which was passed in 2016, which began in July 1st, 2024, Nash County Public Schools. And then this past summer, in June, Senate Bill 248, which was gave us a year to get this release to come up July 1st, 2024. So that information's there as well as the policy update. You can also read, if you have the time, the demerger plan that was submitted to the state. I say that because we've received about 4 questions inquiring about that. We've also received some questions about Edgecombe County residents that attend Rocky Mount High School. So if you go also to Nash County Public Schools on the landing page, and we've sent this out via email as well, the legacy transfer process is right now, but that is for the Rocky Mount High School rising 10th through 13th graders. So parents, that's really important, and that is for Edgecombe County students who attend Rocky Mount High School. I wanted to address that because that was mentioned.
Nash Central High School is also included as a legacy student school too.
And Northern Nash, and Early College.
If they're there.
There's a few of them.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. One of the questions we received were, will there be opportunities such as Glee Cup, cheer, etc.? Those are not, Miss Nancy Smith, would you like to answer that question?
Good evening. Most often, the district does not offer extracurricular activities in our elementary schools. For an example, Winstead has a walking club. Inglewood may have a step team. So lots of times, principals send out surveys to staffs as well as students to gauge their interests, and from there, they determine extracurricular activities that students can be a part of.
Thank you. Ms. Nancy Smith? This might be for you, for the dual language immersion program. The question is, what will the middle school program look like? Will there be additional students who are currently in the program in schools other than the Inglewood joining the program at Rocky Mount Middle?
At Southern Nash Middle School as well as Edwards Middle School, Spanish immersion is offered as an elective. So we know that when our fifth graders leave Inglewood, that they're fluent at speaking Spanish. Those students are afforded the opportunity to go into high school with high school credits. However, with some of our other students, because they've never taken Spanish before, they could earn a high school credit, but unless they have some experience in speaking Spanish, it would be difficult for them to earn that credit, but we immerse them in Spanish as an elective. It's not a requirement.
That's fine. You made her hang tight. That's what Dr. said. So the person who just submitted the question about the legacy students, come find me, and I'll make sure I get your contact and make sure it's right in the system, so you can have that. There's several questions that we have about staff and about the and a new principal for Winstead Avenue Elementary School. Ms. Wallace, could you yes.
Good evening. Can you be more specific?
They're asking when will they find out about the Winstead Avenue Elementary School principal.
Okay, so at this point, as we've been talking about us going through a demerger. With that being said, we have an intent transfer window that is currently taking place, a survey with our staff. We're not 100% sure at this point if the principals or administrators that are impacted by the demerger over on the Edgecombe County side, if they want to remain with our district or if they plan to transition over to Edgecombe. As soon as the intent transfer window is completed, that's around the February 15-16 mark, we'll have an idea of the number of positions that we have available based on the number of staff members that want to remain in our district, and we will begin to place them. And that will be placement based on where the students are. And a lot of that is going to be impacted by the redistricting that we receive back from ORC? Yes. So around the March time frame, we hope to be able to give an answer to you all about where the administrators will be, as well as where the staff members will be.
We just received a question about the elementary school's playground. So Inglewood has a brand new playground. It's not rated for K2, and Winstead Avenue's playground is not rated for 3-5. Ms. Miller is going to take a look at that, and we will be posting that out and sending that information.
Typically, it's a broad range of grade level, but I will look into that specifically.
Mr. Ward. Thank you.
Typically, with playgrounds, it's a broad spectrum of grade levels. I will look into that and be more specific about what it actually is coded for, and that will meet code. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to those who are watching online. I know you all are sending in questions as well, so thank you for that. Someone just asked how the demerger will be paid for. Dr. Ellis, would you like to discuss that? Robbie Davis, I see you.
Might have to ask that question. So there are some funds first that we've allocated through this whole process of demerger. But then there's going to be a process where we meet with the county commissioners to start having that conversation as to what these costs are really going to come up with. And before I get into that, Mr. Davis, how you doing? I forgot to recognize you today. So when we're talking about county commissioners, we're going to make sure we do all that. But it's like Ms. Miller said, a lot of this stuff these are numbers that we're trying to piece together. So, but we are going to have a conversation with our county commissioners because we are going to need some funds.
Oh, no, I just, would you mind standing up there with me and holding it? Thank you. So we received a question. My daughter is currently a second grader at Williford. Next year we will be moving, and she was due to attend Eaglewood Elementary as a third grader. How does this change affect how she applies for a transfer due to the home address change?
Good evening. Can you be more specific? Is the home address change in Nash, or is it moving to Edgecombe?
I believe it's in Nash County, but they didn't, I'm assuming that's what they asked.
So read that one more
Sure.
time for me.
Their daughter's at Williford, and next year they will be moving, and she was due to attend Eaglewood Elementary as a third grader. How will the change affect how she applies for a transfer due to the home address change?
So if you have a home address change, and the address change is taking you out of the school, which would have been your home school, then what you need to do, we have a process online. It's a new process. If you go to our website, on the home page, there's a tab that says transfer, and it will take you to the transfer process. Outside of that, the transfer process is the same, except for it's now digital. So once you go online, you have to create an account, go through the process. It comes to us digitally. We see it. We go through the process just as we have before, and then you will be notified in an email about whether the transfer has been accepted or not. And if you have questions, if that doesn't help you, if you're confused by that, you can call my office, 462-2515, and you can ask to speak with Barbara Harvey, and she will help walk you through the process. But as far as the transfer process, that process has not changed, other than the fact that it's done digitally.
We just received a question about, where is it? It just went SROs. Will Winstead and Inglewood each get their own SRO?
They will not have an SRO that's full-time in the sense that that person is there all day long. It will be the same process that we have now, where we have one SRO who is assigned to 2 different schools. And since we're talking about SRO, I want to be honest and say we don't know where we are in terms of our elementary SROs at this point for the 24-25 school year, because the grant that we have for elementary SROs sunset on June 30th of this year. So we're hoping that the state is going to give us an opportunity to apply for the grant again, and that those funds will be available. If that's not the case, then that's a conversation that we're going to have with the superintendent and how we move forward as it relates to elementary SROs.
Do you want to allude to that a little bit more? What was the question? So we're getting a lot of questions about where will my child go, when will we find out, who's going to go to Edwards Elementary School. So I just wanted Mr. Ward to maybe just explain that process.
So right now for Edwards Elementary, we said that students that are currently at Williford will attend Edwards Elementary. And any student that may be impacted by the redistricting plan, again, that plan, we won't have that plan until the first week of February, possibly. And once we see those scenarios, I think that's what they're calling them, then we'll have a better idea of what any other student may be impacted in terms of which school they may attend at that point. So right now, we do know Williford, those students, and those students that are currently at Baskerville, D.S. Johnson, and Fairview, they will also attend Williford Elementary School. Edwards Elementary School, thank you. Edwards Elementary School, thank you. Okay. So again, once we hear from the institution in terms of them giving us a more definitive or some scenarios, then we'll be able to come back publicly and share that with you.
Does that make sense? Can we get a show of hands? Just so I want to make sure.
It's clear, not as clear as mud, it's clear.
Okay.
All right.
And it's okay if it doesn't. So another question we've had, and maybe this is a Ms. Nancy Smith question, is about the size of classrooms. So how many Spanish immersion classrooms will be in each grade level next year at Winstead, and will current students need to reapply? I know you probably addressed that in the presentation, but might be helpful.
And I may have to lean on Ms. Wiggins for that, but as it stands right now, we have one dual language classroom per grade level. So what that means is we would have one in kindergarten, one in first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, just as it is now, but they would all be housed in one building. Is that clear?
Pardon? I know. And tomorrow night's also the middle school one, just as a friendly reminder for Edwards Middle. At Edwards Middle. Second. So just a show of hands, has this been helpful so far this evening, having the community forum? I see nods of heads, so show of hands, okay, okay. Sorry, my computer just froze. Are there any, because I'm just reading through to make sure we don't miss out on anyone. Are there any other questions? I'm just going to open up the floor for a couple of questions that we've not addressed, that are not related to staff, but are related to, yes, ma'am. And when he's going to bring you the microphone, and you can just say your name, and then if you don't mind standing. Thank you.
My name's Christy Ellis. Englewood right now has, you showed that they're overpopulated, or whatever the term is, the capacity is over what it should be. So the classroom sizes for like 4th and 5th grade are really high right now. Is that going to change next year at either school? Like, will that be better?
Thank you for the question.
So for class sizes, the state gives us a number that is based on a teacher-student ratio. We can only exceed that number by 3 in elementary. We cap it by the district when you begin to get to middle and high school. But with that being said, there's really not a number that the state restricts us to. I'm sorry, I didn't.
How does Englewood get that far over capacity if there's limits in place?
If they are an opportunity cultural school, you can receive a waiver from the state. Also Spanish immersion. What about Spanish immersion? Okay, Ms. Dancy Smith, you may have to speak to the waiver, because there are certain waivers. Those are 2 that I know of.
So, just to add a little bit more to what Mrs. Wallace shared, there is a class size maximum requirement in grades K through 3. In grades 4th on up, there is no maximum. So the only maximums are actually in the primary grades. We can apply for a waiver for dual language classes, only in K3, and we can apply for a waiver if it is an opportunity culture school. And let me tell you the why for OC, which is opportunity culture. Because the teachers in opportunity culture are in advanced teaching roles. So what that means is, at some portion of the day, classrooms are relieved because certified teachers are pulling them out for small group instruction and to teach them. So we are in compliance because that's a part of the grant. But most importantly, we believe in the impact of opportunity culture because it affords some of our teachers to earn additional money, and it puts certified teachers, when we have a teacher shortage, in front of all of our students.
Thank you. And Mr. Ward's gonna go hand you the mic. Is there another question? I did see a hand raised.
Hello, my name is Natima, and in reference to trying to determine where your child will go next year, my children start off at Winstead and then transfer to Inglewood. And so now I'm wondering, since my home is closer to Inglewood, will my children that are here wind up remaining here, or will they now be going to what would be the 3rd to 5th grade school? Will they be going there as the remainder of their elementary school education?
Okay, that's a good question. She asked, her child is currently here. Could it possibly be that her child could go to Inglewood based on your address, current address? Again, we're going to wait for that data to come back from ORED, because that could very well be a possibility because you're both K-5 schools serving the same community.
Was that good? Okay, thank you. We have one right here.
Good evening, Tia Hudgens Taylor. I don't think we ever addressed or whether or not the Spanish immersion students will need to reapply.
Okay, great. That's a great question.
That's an easy question, but if you have students that are already enrolled in Spanish immersion, they would not need to reapply. Now, it is possible, and Dr. Farrell, you helped me with this, they may have to apply for reassignment, but not for the program. Correct, Miss?
And there's a gentleman right down the baseball cap.
My son actually currently goes to Winstead. He's actually in 2nd grade, but we are a product of buying into to Nash County because we now live in Edgecombe County, but we preferred to stay at the Nash County School. Now, due to the changing of the classes that are going to possibly grow, I know this is kind of a new thing that's going to be implemented. My wonder is, since we are kind of the outsiders to this, is there like a bump out process, like a chance of being bumped out that, even though we're buying in, I know that if classroom capacities are full, in-county kids would technically be primary over, say, my kid that's out of county.
Would you mind, sorry, when you say buy-in, do you mean tuition? Or,
Yes.
Okay. And, hey, Mr. Ward? Yeah. Thank you.
I believe I heard your question correctly, is that you're living in Edgecombe County and you're going to want your children to remain in Nash. So there's a tuition process that we have. And again, you can call the number 252-462-2515. Barbara Harvey is my administrative assistant, and she can help walk you through that process.
But my question is, if the classroom capacities get to a max, would my kid be technically bounced out to another school because of the classroom capacity that he's already in here?
That is a possibility. What we have done in the past is, in those situations, offer the parent another school. I don't know that we've had the situation with a parent who had been paying tuition for a while, but we had had the case with a new parent wanting to pay tuition and having to go to another school that was not their first choice.
Okay.
Okay, maybe a lot of parents aren't aware about the tuition situation But if there was a parent who wanted to pay tuition, how much would that tuition be?
The tuition differs from year to year, and that tuition price is based on the per pupil expenditure that the county commissioners pay for the students in Nash County. So I cannot tell you what the cost will be next year. What I can tell you is that the cost, since I have been sitting in my seat, has ranged from $1,300 to as much as $1,600 per school year.
I want to circle back to the playground question I got. I think it was in reference to Inglewood that was on there. There are two current playgrounds, a smaller one and a larger one, that would actually take care of the K-5 regulations and mandates, and that would have a small section that was more for the K-2 by code, and the larger playground is 3-5, but that does not mean we wouldn't add on to that based on ADM. So that would absolutely be looked at. Thank you.
Count on being able to use that playground. Like, I would really
Would you mind
suggest-
starting over and stating your name?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank
My
you.
name is Elizabeth Mackey. And so it was my question about the playgrounds, because the PTA, I mean, everyone knows that, really worked hard to get these playgrounds. And like, I have a 4th grader there, so he hasn't had a playground. They finished it today. He came home so excited, just as a side note, to get to have this playground. So we didn't do anything with the K through 2, and that playground is very old. So I would just strongly suggest maybe having it evaluated before you are like, oh, that's gonna work, because I don't know that it can be counted on. But also the other part of the question is if I live across the street, so if my child ends up here as a 5th grader, is he not gonna have a playground again for a 3rd year in his last year in elementary school? Because, so like, it was a 2-part, because I do worry about both schools. But he only answered half of it.
So I can speak to that. Just like you said, y'all did work really, really hard, and the board and our department worked really, really hard to make it fair across the district so that everybody was treated the same. And as I said, we will absolutely look at that, just like everything will have to meet code. We would not want to leave anybody out. We will budget to try to make it fair. But I can't give you a truthful, honest answer, because my answer is I do not know. We will absolutely look at it. I would not treat your child any different than mine. So if it's not playable, I would totally agree with you. Thank you.
So there was a question that asked, why would Inglewood and Winstead not have their own individual SRO? If you all will remember, going back 2 school years, in Nash County Public Schools, we only had SROs in our middle and high schools. We wrote a grant for elementary SROs. We were awarded a grant. In that grant, we asked for SROs for our elementary schools, knowing that we would have 1 SRO officer who served 2 elementary schools, because the cost of the SROs were just too much, and we knew we were not getting the complete funding through the grant. And so the reason why we will not have individual SROs, unless the state fools me and gives us a ton of money, if they put the grant back out, is just because of the expenditures of SROs. It will cost the district, as we currently have our SROs set up, if the district was paying all of that money, it would be about $1.3 million for SROs. And that's with 1 SRO serving 2 elementary schools. So imagine if we have an SRO for each elementary school. Not that it's not worthy, not that we do not need it, but it all comes down to funding. The other question was about Evolve systems for elementary schools. Again, it comes down to funding. Those Evolve machines are extremely expensive. We do not have the funding for them at this point. It has been a topic of conversation with our Board of Education, our superintendent and his staff, and we are looking to try to find funding that we might be able to bring in, if not Evolve, some sort of system to help with our elementary schools.
Nicole Combs. I have 3 children in 3 different schools. As a parent of a second grader who had a gun in her classroom at this school earlier this year, I understand the money aspect 110%. Totally get that. Is there a timeline in place for, obviously you're looking for grants and things of that nature, then that comes with time. Is there a game plan on the calendar for, hey, we hope to have this accomplished by a certain day and time? Because if it's going to go from K2 to K5, not trying to put anything on our 3rd through 5th graders, but the older they get, the more discipline, area issues we have. So just curious as to how that's going to be. A 5th grader and a kindergarten on the same hall now, it does increase the risk of potential threats.
We do not have a timeline. However, again, what we are doing is actively looking for ways that we could try to cover those costs for our elementary schools. I will let Mr. Ward, I'm going to put him on the spot, speak about some of the things that we're trying to do to better secure our elementary schools. Ms. Ward, do you want to talk about and it's not the same as the evolve system, but it is another layer of security.
Oh, the logs, okay. So much is going on, I'm sorry. What we are looking into was a part of our grant was these specific locks, safe locks, or like a deadbolt lock that could be used on the doors for the schools. So we're looking at those. So we're just trying to have multiple layers until we can get to that point where we can have the evolve systems in all of our schools. But we are taking measures. So right now, I commend the teachers, that are using the Say Something Anonymous app that are identifying students that may be a potential threat. So, that's another layer as well. So to your point where it happened, another student identified that student, and that student was able to be found with that weapon, of course. And so just communication is a big part of it, is safety, because we can never have physically, we talk about hardware versus hardware, and I think, communication is that hardware where we establish that communication with our teachers, with our students. If you see something, you hear something, you say something, and that's a part of it as well. But as far as the physical security, so we're looking at what we can do in our elementary schools, and we're starting with those locks. Those locks, I think we priced those locks, they're about $805 a piece to go into schools. And so that is in the Safe Schools budget. It's a part of the budget. And so we're going to start with certain schools, putting those locks in the schools, hopefully by this summer when the money is given to us. I was going to say, I lost my train of thought, folks. But anyway, yeah, to your point, we totally agree with you on that. We can never put a price on safety. I have stake in this game. I have a child in the school system, and I would just say you can never put a dollar amount when it comes to the safety of students and staff. I think you had a question.
Hi, my name's Kenyana. I have a child at Baskerville and 3 children at Parker. You said it's a possibility that the children impacted from the demerger from Baskerville and Parker, Baskerville might go to Edwards, or it is a for sure thing?
Did you say you live in Nash County?
Yes.
Okay. You live in Nash County, so you're already a resident, so your students that are currently at Parker, the fifth grader,
and Parker.
will Rocky Mount Middle.
Mm-hmm.
And the high schooler,
elementary.
The elementary.
Baskerville.
Baskerville, what grade?
She'll be going to the 3rd grade.
Going to the 3rd grade.
Yes.
That's Baskerville student in Nash County. That will be a part of the redistricting plan. Mm-hmm. So in your particular case, it has not been decided.
Okay.
So because the Nash County students that are currently attending Edgewater County School, they're a part, that was what I was going over earlier. Your child is one of those 87 students.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
One question, I believe this might be a Dancy Smith and a Dr. Ellis and a Farrow one. Dr. Farrow, all 3, trifecta. How will the shifts we are making better serve students, most of the margins, such as those who are behind academically, those with special needs or just abilities, those who experience housing instability, and those from low economic backgrounds?
So any specialized educational programs that we have will follow the students. So by law, we have to serve students that are exceptional children, our EC students. We have to serve our academically gifted students. So all of those service delivery models will follow our students. In all transparency, Nash County Public Schools has been a low-performing school district prior to this past school year for, was it 10 years, Dr. Ellis? For 10 years. So I would be lying to you if I did not say to you that traditionally, historically, our students have not performed well. Some of that, and a lot of that, really has to do with teacher vacancies and the capacity of teachers across the district. So we have some schools that do exceptionally well, but we have some schools where we're struggling academically. So what we believe, and as the person who leads academics and accountability, is we cannot intervene our way out of this. So what we have to do is pour into our teachers, train them to work with every single student and not just a certain subgroup of students. And most importantly, when we're working with those students, the instruction has to be strong, which means all children have to be taught with grade level content. Because if we're not teaching students to that level, then students will not be ready to perform at the end of the school year. So interventions are important, but the most important thing is tier 1, which is strong core instruction. So what a lot of our schools are doing right now is they're blending it. Every one of our schools have built into their master schedules intervention, but it's no more than 45 minutes. What we've tried to capitalize on is what teachers are doing with students. They're doing that core instruction. And that's not an easy answer, but it's a truthful answer.
That was a good answer. But what you don't want to do, in my opinion, with this whole redistricting process is when we're looking at the ORED and we start getting the maps, you don't want to create a school that's going to fail. So when they ask for information, they're getting test scores, they're getting demographics, they're getting everything. So what you're doing is you're going to build schools that have the capacity to excel, like Ms. Dancy Smith said. But what we don't want to do is create a school that's just going to fail. And you know what I mean when you're just pushing other kids that are already at risk. We got to make sure we create, through this whole process, strong schools. Okay? And that's what we're going to do when you see these maps.
As it relates to our families who have housing insecurity, we are fortunate in Nash County Public Schools that we have 12 social workers. That when you look at districts that are our size in Eastern North Carolina, they do not have that level of support. Our Board of Education, our superintendent have supported our efforts throughout the years to make sure that we have school social workers in place to support our families. So we refer to students who have housing insecurity as McKinney-Vento. That's a whole federal piece, there's a whole state legislation behind that. So regardless of where the child is attending school in Nash County Public Schools, if they have housing insecurity, we are required by law to do certain things. One, to make sure that they are getting to school with transportation. The other is to make sure that if they were attending the school that was in a different place than where they might be living now, that we give them that opportunity to still continue attending school there. There are other things that our social workers and our school counselors do with families who have housing insecurity to try to make sure that those children are getting the best education that they possibly can. I hope that answered that question about housing insecurity.
Thank you. Where's the clicker? I wanted to go back to thank you. We've had 52 people who've already signed up, but they're here this evening. Thank you. Ms. Nancy Smith, this might be a question for you. We just received a question about the Inglewood STEM programs and how will that be for Winstead Avenue, and one of the examples was the Brick City, and will they still have those same opportunities?
That's an easy yes.
Easy yes. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any more questions? Yes, ma'am. What?
So again, guys, those are easy yeses. We offer those opportunities to every single school. We weren't doing it at K2 because the students weren't eligible, but all of our K5 schools have an opportunity to participate in the STEM challenges, battle of the books, spelling bee, all of that good stuff. We believe in equity. So that's an extracurricular activity. So Odyssey of the Mind is not a district-sponsored, it's more like an academic club. So again, if that is something that the principal and the community at Winstead would like to continue, I am certain that the principal will solicit feedback from parents as well as students. I can see it continuing at Inglewood, but I cannot say with certainty that it will be at Wave, but I do know we have another elementary school on the southern end of the county that also participates in Odyssey of the Minds. Yes. Well, the school on the southern end has had it since I've been here. Now, maybe they don't travel to the regional conferences, but I know they work within the district, because that is an added expense that the district does not pay for. It's expensive.
Any other questions? Ooh. I'm sure there will be. And I just sent everyone who signed in on the digital form. Is there anybody that's not been able to access this that would like to sign in via paper? Just come and find me. I'm happy to help out. Thank you all so much for coming out this evening. Thank you for wanting to be involved, stay engaged and informed. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me and I can put you in the right direction in case you didn't catch any of the numbers or information. I'm hlfinch at ncpsschools.net, and basically, or the PR-department, or you can respond back to that annoying phone call you get when we cancel or delay school. Sorry about that late call. It was not my fault. Thank you all again for coming out. Have a good evening and drive safely.